I will.
Thank you.
I will. Good evening, everyone.
Hello. Good evening.
Come on, let's try it one more time. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you. When I was much younger, before I ran around in Commonwealth Stadium, I could hear people talking three rooms down, so you got to respond to me. I am so delighted to be here. Mel and I are friends. Mel and I met when I worked at the university some, what is that, almost 25 years ago now. I had moved back to Kentucky. I'm originally, and I'm going to test you guys to make sure that you were paying attention. I'm originally from Hastings, Florida, and I'm certain everyone knows where Hastings is.
Yep. Florida.
You tricked them. You're good. Let me ask you this question. Do anyone here eat potatoes? Yes?
Yes.
Too many.
When you think of potatoes, you think of what?
Idaho.
Idaho. Well,
Yeah.
let me give you some new information. Per capita, my city, Hastings, Florida, when I was younger, we grew more potatoes per capita than any city in America. And people think of Florida as a citrus state, and in my hometown, there's not one grove. Not one. We grow potatoes, we grow cabbage, cucumbers, and now Vidalia onions. Small town, population 800 people. And so I like small.
Which part of Florida is that?
Northern Florida. It's outside of St. Augustine, Jacksonville. Okay. You know, and I was there until I was 15, and we were winning all the time in football, but I was at a small town. And so very few large, quote unquote, big universities came to our town. As a matter of fact, my freshman year we were 13-1 in state champs. My sophomore year we were 14-0 in state champs. And we had this one guy off my team to go to the University of Florida. I had no aspirations at all to go to the University of Florida. None. As a matter of fact, they recruited me, but I did not visit. Matter of fact, all the schools in Florida did, most of the schools rather. And so I left from there going to Camden, New Jersey in 1972. I went there because, again, for opportunities. And so I moved with my high school coach. And he had convinced my parents that if we're successful, I'll be able to go to any university in the country that I want. And so we moved to Camden, and the first year we were 2-8. And the funny part about that was I would walk around the campus, and Camden High School, 9th through 12th grade, was 4,500 students. This was a big place. So it allowed me to get lost because I'm just a tall guy walking around campus. And so I would hear these kids saying, man, they brought that big old quarterback up here and they still sorry. Well, that was a fair statement. It was fair. But that year, we were 2-8. The next year, we're 10-0 in state champs. Quick turnaround. And just as my coach had mentioned, a lot of universities around the country was trying to recruit me to come and play sport. And so originally I decided to go to the University of Michigan because I wanted to play both basketball and football. And Bo Schembecker, in all his wisdom, decided, no, I just want you to play football. We ended up coming to UK, and I got the chance to play basketball my first 2 years here as well as football. But UK, I owe this place a lot. The University of Kentucky has been wonderful to Derrick Ramsey and his family. They put me on a course that as a young boy, I could never imagine the things I've been able to do coming from that little town. Couldn't imagine. To think that I was going to be an All-American quarterback, to think that I was going to be an SEC champ, to think that I was going to go on to play in 2 Super Bowls. Wow. I just It's unimaginable. I dreamed about it, but so many times dreams don't come true. So many times. And then post-football, to have been an athletic director of 2 universities, to have been the deputy secretary of the Commerce Cabinet, now Secretary of Labor. Never in my wildest would have thought that. So I'm thankful every day to these incredible opportunities this university and this community has afforded me. And I'm particularly proud of the fact that in 1975 I became the first African-American quarterback here at this great institution. And during
75, did you say?
1975. 1975. And the interesting part about that, it was a crazy time then because that wasn't the in vogue thing to do, was to have somebody look like me playing quarterback. As a matter of fact, there were only 2 guys prior to me in the SEC that played quarterback. That was Condridge Holloway at the University of Tennessee and Don Gaffney at the University of Florida. 72 and 73 was when those guys hit the scene. But for some reason or another, the people of Kentucky looked past my veneer. Looked past it. They have welcomed me, they have supported me at every turn. And yes, there are some of those who didn't want to go along with it, but they didn't like winning. So I forgave them. I forgave them. But that experience, those 4 years, was an incredible experience for me. And to be able to accomplish what we did during that time, UK has yet to come close to it since that time.
Wow.
They haven't come close. And so, as I went through that journey, then go on playing the National Football League for 9 years, all the while I'm thinking, at some point, I'm coming back to Lexington. At some point. I knew I would. I liked it. People liked me. I liked them. They had put me where I couldn't have gotten by myself. And so I wanted to come back and give back. And so, hence, I am in the 4th quarter of my career at this point, and I couldn't have drawn up a better play than what's occurring right now as Deputy Secretary. As an athletic director, I loved it because I was helping people like myself. Because my family, on my mother's side, me and my siblings, are first-time college attenders. First time. And there's 5 of us. And all 5 of us have gone through, gotten degrees, and the 3 older ones retired, myself and my youngest brother are still at it. But again, you know, from that foundation to this foundation, it's allowed me to do things unimaginable for a young person. And so I am eternally grateful to the Commonwealth. Eternally. And so I tell my staff, and I tell people when I talk, I am here simply to repay a debt. I owe the state of Kentucky. And I am going to repay that debt. Now, let me tell you what I do as Labor Secretary. I am responsible for workers' claims. They're responsible for workers' compensation. They're responsible for child labor. And then on the other side of the street, workplace standard, OSH, compliance, education and training. I'm forgetting here 2 or 3 other things. The apprentice, which is my baby. And the reason apprentice is my baby, when I took this job, any job I've taken here of recent in particular, earlier in your career, you take jobs because you need a job. Well, the last 3 or 4 jobs, I really haven't needed one, so it's what I wanted. I chose to do these things. Well, with this job, you know, and I came in and I told my folk, I said, we have to be impactful. We're not here just to do a job. I don't need a job. We have to be impactful. So, how we impact? There's this notion that's called apprentice that's been around for the last 90 years in our country. And you go into Germany, you go into Switzerland, you go into England, it's been around for over 250 years. So it's not a new notion. But it seems new, sounds new, is new in a lot of ways, simply because in my lifetime, when I left high school in 1974, during that time there were two on-ramps, if you would, to success, two. One was college prep, the other was vocational. Well, what's happened over the last 40 years? Vocation's been squeezed out, stigmatized out, or just flat shut out. And so now what we're doing, me and my team, we're working with principals, we're working with counselors, we're working with superintendents, we're working with KCTCS now, JCTC over in Louisville, also working with EKU, soon to be working with Western Kentucky, and also Sullivan College. Now, what happened over those 40 years? Over those past 40 years, you had all of these things basically shut down. And people in our country, we talk about the absence of the middle class. Middle class didn't go to China, they didn't go to Taiwan, nor did they go to Mexico. We stopped making things. We stopped maintaining things. The middle class in this country has basically been made up of manufacturers, construction workers, and the likes. Plumbers, welders, HVAC guys. That's what the middle class is made up of. And so what has happened during that time? Our roads, when you drive down these things, and when you go across a bridge, I don't know if any of you all have been to New York lately. The last time I went across to George Washington, I prayed. I mean, that thing's falling right in front of your face. Right in front of your face. And so, this apprentice notion, back to that. I believe that the apprentice in the state of Kentucky will change the trajectory of learning for one generation, if not two. I believe that. Now, let me tell you why I believe that. You say, this guy coming with some really wild notions here. In the state of Kentucky, right now, we have over 350,000 people that do not have a GED nor a high school diploma. That's factual. During the
Can you say that
downturn,
number again?
350,000.
Thank you.
350,000.
Those are adults.
Yes, yes. In addition to that, during the downturn, 08, 09, we have between, and depends on who's counting this thing, but below them I've heard, we have 160,000 to as many as 200,000 people that did not go back to the workplace. Those are factual. Third, 60% of our young people that graduate from high school here in the state of Kentucky go on to college. Of that 60%, only 20% graduates. Okay? So the number that I'm looking at is somewhere in that 500 to 600,000 range. That's our target. That's our target. Now, I was fortunate enough to be put on this committee by the governor. It's called the Work Matters Task Force. And we've had one meeting so far. And the really cool part about it is they brought some folk from outside and was telling us about things that's going on around the country. You know, as I'm talking about this whole apprentice idea, I talked about those groups of people because as I travel around the state of Kentucky, all around the state of Kentucky, folk are saying, Secretary, we need skilled laborers. Everywhere I go in the state of Kentucky. be it the far west, be it central, be it south, north, we need skilled laborers. And so the interesting part about that is as we start to remedy this issue, or lack thereof, we talked about those 500,000 people we talked about, but we need more than that. Hence, we now have a program, collaboration between our cabinet and the Cabinet for Justice called Justice is Journeyman. And what this program is about is having those sisters and brothers that are incarcerated right now, before they get out, they're going to pick up a skill, be it welding, be it electricity, because what all the data shows is that if you do not have a home, if you do not have transportation, if you do not have a job, within 2 years, there's a big chance that you're going back. That's a fact. So we're working with them, that group. But what was brought to my attention, because we talked about how we're going to, because the governor and the executive, the Economic Development Cabinet, they have done an incredible job. We're setting records now bringing businesses here. The record prior to this was $7 billion of new business brought to the state. Well, as of July, we were at $7 billion. And so what does that mean? That means we're bringing these jobs here. We need people to fill those jobs. Now, in this Work Matters Task Force, the thing that was abundantly clear, we got this tent, if you could imagine, with all these type folk under it. Talking about those 500,000, we talk about the incarcerated people, all those folk. And the number on the incarcerated last year, we had 16,500 or somewhere thereabout that were released back. So the interesting part about the incarcerated folk is this. Between 95 and 97% of the people that are incarcerated are coming back home. They're coming back. And so we can act like we don't want them. They're coming back. And so we can either work with them or we can continue to pay for them. Those are two options to me. And I'm certain there's some other options, but those are the ones that are abundantly clear. But in this meeting, what we talked about is what are we going to do with our Kentuckians that have disabilities? What are we going to do? That's where we are now, in the Labor Cabinet. And we're going to work like the Dickens to work with people that have disabilities. Because they too are Kentuckians. They are. And yes, they have challenges, but so do I. So do I. I'm just fortunate that I have a team of good people around me. We all have our challenges. We do. I recognize that. I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses, that's why I always hire to my weakness. I know that. Am I trying to change? No, not this late date. That's just the way I am. That's the way I am. So we're going to work with people with disabilities. And so what I'd like to do now is pause for a little bit because, to be honest, I know very little about autism. When autism first hit the scene for me was when I saw Rain Man. You all have been living with it every day. Totally different. That was a movie. It just gave me a perspective of what autism is about. And I'm sure they did a lot of that to sell movies. But I want to hear from you all. You know, how I can help and how you can help me help you. Okay, and then I'll pick back up. Yes, ma'am.
We had a situation